was a little bit of persecution
We
and stuff
may
like
have
that,
to
which is
rename
bad.
this show
But
because you're a little bit more than a far-right Republican.
hey, what can I say?
I think you can say I'm a fascist.
Yeah, I am. Absolutely.
I'm just checking who's clapping.
Boo boo boo. I'm starting to have a feeling that the kids are not all right. I am concerned about young men. I'm not the only person who's concerned about young men. There's been a lot of whistles blown around about how young men have begun really tilting towards extremism, and I see this a lot. And it was that clip that showed me it's probably time to make a video on this. If you're a young man watching this right now, and I characterize young man as like anyone between the ages of like 10 and 25, so there's a pretty broad range there. If you are watching me right now, I want you to like just hear me out for a little bit, okay? I have spent a lot of time in online spaces throughout all of my years. I've spent a lot of time in spaces that don't tolerate politics and like generally disagreeable topics like that. And I've also spent a lot of time in spaces that are hyper focused on those. And I've been lucky enough to not fall down a rabbit hole of wanting to use my loneliness and my boredom in a way to be indoctrinated with something that would make me a hateful person. And I feel like I see more and more young men every day who are falling down that rabbit hole. And I really started to notice this when the whole Andrew Tate thing was going on. He gets a lot of hate for a lot of good reasons. He's not a very good person, and he should not have people looking up to him. But here we are. This guy, Connor is his name, on Jubilee, has gotten a lot of attention on social media. A lot of attention. Because he pretty much came out and said,
I think you can say I'm a fascist.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Well, that's not something you should be. There used to be a time when people were afraid to say that out loud, and now people are proud of it. And that's scary to me, because this man is not that much older than me. I believe he's like in his mid-20s. I think Connor is a perfect textbook definition of what a groomed person looks like. And not groomed in like the traditional sense of where you have a person that goes in and grooms somebody into something. I'm saying he was groomed by a movement, by a community that took advantage of him and what I perceive to be loneliness, and used that to mold him into something extreme. This is the clip that drew me to that.
How would Connor's America look? What would it look like?
I would say, quite frankly, it's under a sort of benevolent leader, such as
Where does he
Franco.
come from?
It could be a kind of aristocratic class. Could be someone
But who picks the autocrat?
Frankly, the people. I mean, we could hold a vote on it. Kings
So
were
isn't that democracy?
Well, sure. You can have a vote to get to that stage.
And then no more votes afterwards?
Absolutely.
Wow.
100%.
Wow. And if that autocrat kills you and your family, you're fine with that?
Well, I'm not going to be a part of the group that he kills.
The aristocrats won't kill me and my family because I'm not the people that they would kill. Originally, I laughed at that. Like, I started laughing really hard because it was so, it was pathetic, honestly. It was pathetic, and it was overall, it showed how little intelligence and foresight he had into how political systems work. And that was definitely eye-opening. But after the laughing, and after I was kind of digesting the video in my head, and I watched the clip a couple more times, I started to feel really, really sad, because I understood what this meant. This dude has been groomed into being an alt-right fascist man. I want to come on here and say, before anything else, I do not care what your political opinions are, as long as you are not a fascist, as long as you are not a Nazi, as long as you are not a white supremacist. Those are all things that I do not support. And I don't want Republicans and conservatives who maybe watch me or are listening to this or this gets clipped to think that I automatically categorize them in the same pool as Connor. I don't. You are not him. But Connor is a very explicit example of why the male loneliness epidemic, which is totally real. I'm not even joking about this. I'm not using this as a joke. When you have a lonely man and then he's online and he's exposed to radical ideas, and then he goes in and he's groomed into these ideas that aren't real. Stuff like Jews are taking over the world. Wasn't such a bad guy, right? The Nazis prosecuted my religion, so that's why I hate them. But I don't hate them necessarily for killing millions of innocent Jewish people. After this, it was found out that he was a very strong anti-Semite who has connections to anti-Semite content creators. And the infuriating part about this is that he said he got laid off from his job and he created a GoFundMe and he was paid $30,000 worth of donations from what I can only assume to be some of the worst people in the world who decided to fund him after everything that he said. Young men have a serious problem. They're lonely. They're being groomed into ideas because the people who are grooming them have a financial incentive now to lie to them. Before, people just used to do it because they were genuinely crazy or genuinely really racist or genuinely a Nazi, right? And now we still have those people, right? But now they're getting paid. And maybe it's not entirely all in money, but they are getting that now. Yeah, I mean, you go on X now, and you can get paid for doing tweets. And there is a lot of anti-Semitic speech on X, and people can get paid for doing that. But there's a second form of payment now that I feel like not a lot of people are talking about, and that is attention. A lot of people do crazy stuff and start believing in crazy things because they want attention and because that fuels them. And then as a byproduct of that, they then believe the crazy stuff that they're saying. And then that infects another person. If you are a young man, if you're a young person in general, because women can fall into this as well, I urge you just not to engage in political content anymore. Political content has now transformed from something that was meant to educate and inform people to now something that is meant to indoctrinate and divide us and to polarize our politics further. Specifically, I'm speaking for my people in America. America is very polarized and divided now. We are being torn apart by our own political system, and it's going to collapse at one point or another, right? And the contention has split not only amongst our representatives, but it's also in our people now. And I know a lot of people who won't be friends with others, or they will verbally attack them or defame their character simply because they're a liberal or simply because they're a conservative, which I don't think is right. Young men also have had a lot of shifts in polling recently. And when I'm saying young men now, I'm meaning 18 to, I believe, 25. Young men are voting more conservative. Young men are now ranking more religious. Young men are ranking more anxious and depressed than ever. I have a lot of very unpopular opinions when it comes to how religion affects people and societies. And while I think that religion is largely a net positive for how people function in a society, I agree with Seneca on this. I think Seneca is personally my favorite philosopher, and he has this great quote: religion is regarded by the common people as true, by the wise as false, and by the rulers as useful. I largely agree with that because I feel like religion has been largely used and manipulated against voters and against citizens, and especially young men recently. If you are religious, that's okay. I'm not attacking you for being religious. But I think that the way that religion is being used now, not only by a lot of churches that I know, like the people in ministry, but also by people who are, again, making content, I think it's incredibly damaging, because I don't think the true message is there anymore. I think it's fallen into the same track that the politic media space has gone in, where you have to have extreme opinions to get attention. And I think religion is being used in that. And I think it's being used to influence people, because for the past thousands of years, we have regarded well-known people who are religious as to be moral authorities. And now we can turn to the equivalent, like same people now, and we can see them saying and doing horrible things. I don't necessarily like bringing Trump into everything, but Trump has been leaned very, very hard into Christians and evangelicals during his running race for the presidential seat in 2024. He ran very hard in that. He started selling Bibles, which also completely against Christianity. He was always talking about the Bible and Christianity. This is a man who is best friends with this was a man who has had seven wives. This is a man who has cheated on his pregnant wife with a star. This is not a moral man. This is not a religious man. This is not a man that we should be looking to for religious moral authority. And I feel like young men are being made to feel like the only option that they have now is to become increasingly religious, to meet up with the demands of what they see in media. And I feel like along the way, that religion is being corrupted. Again, I have no problem with religious people. I don't care. But I know a large portion of religious people who are amazing people. And I know about probably a 20 to 30% I really wouldn't ever want to speak to. Strictly because they are all young men who have extremely hateful, polarizing opinions that they use religion to justify. And I'm not going to get into what all of those are. I think you can guess. They usually have something to do with women and queer people and immigrants and people of color and the poor. I feel sorry for young men today, because they have been given nothing to leech onto but this hate. There's no force of good anymore for them to look to. If you want to look to politics, the Democratic Party failed to bring in young men because a large portion of their voter base demonized the way that young men were behaving, because they were starting to lean more Republican, which pushed them into becoming more conservative because the other party wasn't going to accept them, right? And so now we have this problem where we've shoved an entire demographic off to the side, and we've, again, made two polarized groups. I really didn't want to make this video. I don't like making videos about politics. I don't like making videos about religion, but this is very important. I recently went and saw the new Superman movie, and it was so refreshing to see a modern male masculine lead that was not displaying toxic behaviors at all. It was refreshing how empathetic he was, how straight to the point he was, how he was able to defend the innocent people in the world, and show how that in it of itself, none of the rewards that came after that in it of itself was not only worth his time, but it made him feel whole and complete. I think things like that, we don't see that in media anymore. We don't have people to look up to as young men that are figures of how we would want to live out our lives and model ourselves after. Right? I mean, I don't want a bunch of 8-year-olds to look up to Andrew Tate and be like, I just want to be like him one day. Don't be a pimp. Don't be a pimp one day. Why are we looking up to pimps? There's no one in this world anymore that's able to stand up for a large demographic of people that are being overlooked. My main advice to you is to really just stay off the internet as much as possible, which has become increasingly hard. And I know that's impossible, so I'm just going to say get off of political TikTok, get off of political Instagram, get off of Twitter, get off of Threads, get off of like Reddit, get off of like apps that you know you engage in politics in, and just live your life. Do what you think is moral. Don't let other people try and like influence that in a way, and just be a cool person. Just be a cool dude. You'll find your way, just like everyone else. This was a little bit of a rant. Sorry about that, but don't give Nazis money. I don't know what to say. I mean, like, just don't give Nazis money, man.